Hello, everybody, and welcome back into another post-game show here at the Hockey Writers YouTube channel. We are in the Stanley Cup Final. Game one in the books. 4-3 overtime winner, which this game deserved overtime. I mean, what a game for hockey fans. What a game for the first game of the Stanley Cup Final here. Joined in by Jim Bay and Kerry Collins. Guys, start with you, Kerry. How'd you feel this game was? I mean, lived up to the hype of these two teams. How do you feel it went on Colorado's side?
Yeah, I mean, they started out, that's kind of been their MO in first periods. This playoffs, I mean, out of the four that they've played, that's the third time they've scored at least 3 goals. So that was a good start for them. And then Kucherov makes the great pass, and then all of a sudden, boom, it's 1 goal. Then all of a sudden it's just tied like 45 seconds later, or 48 seconds later. Yeah. So I mean, that they got the start that they wanted, but it really seemed kind of like the same type of game that game one was against St. Louis. And the similarity is both of them came back after they swept a team, but it seemed like Tampa Bay really made a lot of adjustments to bottle them up. They didn't get that many shots on goal after that. So it was a good start, but and of course a good finish, but it seemed like Tampa made a lot more of the adjustments.
There's a lot of momentum swings I felt in this game. Tampa had, the Avs came out flying, like they usually do in games, and got ahead 3-1, and then Tampa Bay came back. Jim, Tampa, they looked kind of off a bit in the first period, and then came back, stormed back, and tied the game. How'd you feel the Lightning did in this first game, their latest Stanley Cup Final?
Yeah, well, I think it wasn't as much about what Colorado did in the first period, about what Tampa Bay did and didn't do. The first 2 goals, Vasilevsky stops those 999 times out of 1,000. And I'm sitting there going, okay, this is the Rangers' first game series all over again. And everybody's going to get all worried, but he rebounded quicker in this game than what he did in the New York series. So that's, good news for Tampa. Tampa also had a problem taking care of the puck. When they struggle, they don't take care of the puck. You cannot do that against the Avalanche, and not taking care of the puck led to the overtime goal. That was a bad turnover. And first period and a half, Tampa Bay wasn't taking care of the puck, getting lots of and the one led to a penalty. Instead of clearing out a puck, you get a tripping call. Whether or not anybody liked it or not, it is what it is. And it all leads from, sloppy play with the puck. And if, the Lightning want to get their 3rd Stanley Cup Final, they have to do this on a more consistent basis in the rest of the games.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, a lot of the time they did have that problems with, managing the puck was a big thing the Lightning had in this game. And I do agree, it seemed like the same type of thing. And against the Rangers, they seemed slower. They didn't, kind of weren't keeping up with the Avalanche. And then they kind of, brought that back. I want to talk about another thing the Lightning have kind of come forward is their willingness to block shots. And the Avalanche had a bit of trouble getting, they get some chances. They look like they're going to get a great scoring chance, and shot gets blocked or doesn't get through to Vasilevsky. Do you feel this is going to be a theme throughout this series, or is this going to, are the Avs going to find a way through it?
No, I think this is what Tampa's done throughout the playoffs. They were blocking shots, especially when they play well. It started back in the Toronto series, and it carried over into almost every other series after that. This is what they do. They play very defensive minded. They're counter punchers. They will wait for you to make a mistake, and then they'll capitalize on it. And that's why they're so, banged up. Brandon Hagel has been hurt from a block shot. And then there's a bunch of other guys that we don't hear about they sacrifice their body. They're willing to give up their body to get to the end goal, which, is the Stanley Cup. It's going to be the same throughout. There's no reason why they stop. This is their MO. They're going to continue doing it. And, if Colorado, I think, wants to be successful, they're going to have to find a way around it. They did pretty good tonight, even though with the block shots, there was a lot of block shots because Colorado had a lot of opportunities too. Their speed, their ability to move the puck and all that stuff that we talked about in the preview, kind of came to fruition tonight. So, it'll be an interesting tug of war to see if the block shots can keep up with, Colorado's high-powered offense.
Yeah. And Kerry, I mean, they outshot him 38-23 and 25 blocked shots. So, I mean, they were firing a lot, and that's what the Colorado Avalanche do. Do you think they'll be able to get through this wall that, the Lightning kind of put up in front of Vasilevsky, and then Vasilevsky looked pretty good in this game too? What type of adjustments do you think they need to make to kind of get around that?
Yeah, because I mean, after the second goal in particular seemed like, I agree with Jim. Those first two goals were just completely uncharacteristic, particularly the second one. And then, you've got to jump on those chances because they're going to come back, and then they did. This is like one of the more resilient teams we've seen clearly over the last couple of years, and that you're not going to get those two every game. You're not going to get a couple of soft goals against him every game where you felt like maybe you were against a Ville Husso or a Mike Smith, things like that. So you can't bank on that, but they did enough to win. I mean, that was a chance for Tampa Bay to kind of erase that, by going into overtime and things like that. But I just think that they're just going to keep pounding it and pounding it and pouring it on because that's just what they've done. And this game one looked very similar to the game one against Edmonton. It looked very similar to the game one against Nashville. And, at the start anyway, and then the way that they let Tampa kind of back into it sort of changed, it changed things. And that should show them, I think it shows everybody that you're just going to have to, I think they're going to have to fire off, whether it's not necessarily shots on goal. They're going to have to get 50, 60 shots off to beat these guys. I think they just have to overwhelm them with sheer volume is what they're probably going to have to do, because even the commentators said it. Once Vasilevsky gets in that zone, he's in it for a while. It's not just like, oh, wow, that was a great period. It's like, wow, that was a great week, and it's like, that's the struggle against these guys, because they're going to forget about this as soon as they wake up tomorrow.
Yeah. I want to talk about kind of a turning point in this game. We talked about how the momentum kind of changed. Jim, Patrick Maroon, we all know he's probably one of the more key guys. He's looking for a fourth Stanley Cup in a row. 3 with the Lightning, 1 with the Blues. Do you feel that was the turning point? I mean, he kind of created that scrum, kind of got his team, dragged him into the fight emotionally. How do you feel Maroon's play in this game was?
He's a veteran. There were, things that he did, and he'll probably say the same thing in post game, things that he wasn't happy about. To me, this game is on Vasilevsky. Maroon and everything else. What the Lightning have always done year after year, especially in the last 2 years, is got solid goaltending from Vasilevsky. So when he let those first 2 goals in and, gave Colorado the momentum, put him down, this is not a team they really want to try to get into, a run and gun, high scoring, contest with. That's not their style. So, Maroon and he, the bad penalty. Yeah, they said he was tired. The puck may have been a little bit on edge. That happens a lot. It happened. It happened to, Colorado made, the too many men on the ice penalty. And that's the other thing that, Maroon's not a part of. Tampa Bay didn't score on their power play tonight, and they didn't look particularly good in doing so. So, Vasilevsky, the power play are, for me, probably 2 of the more bigger factors than, some of the mistakes that Maroon and a few other guys did tonight.
Yeah, I agreed. And Kerry, I want to talk about a key guy that that we noticed a lot in this game. heard his name a lot in Nichushkin. I mean, he had a monster of a game, I felt. And, he's a guy we don't really talk about on the preview shows and stuff like that, but he's been a key part in the playoffs. And how do you feel Nichushkin did in this game? Yeah,
I mean, he had, 20 goals in the regular season. I think since he's been playing with, they kind of bumped him up on that top line to get Rantanen going, and it worked for Rantanen for sure. But once he's up on that top line, he is just firing just like the rest of those two guys, the other two guys. And it just seems like, I mean, in this game, he had 6 shots on goal. That was something that he would never, I don't think he ever came close to that number last year. He might have a couple of times this year because he scored, he had a career year from a goal scoring standpoint. But for him to, step up like that, and he's not, before it was, wow, this guy, earns his paycheck by, being a really tough forechecker, things like that. And now he's way more than that. He's still doing all of that. But, I mean, he was awesome in this game, I thought. I thought he was all over the place. And that was a big goal, the goal that he gets, even though it was one of what we called sort of the softies. The first two, that's a big – to get up 2-0 and, that was a big goal for them. And I think it was a big goal for that line and for him, because he's a guy that, he might go 3-4 games without scoring a point. His defense and his forechecking is always going to be there, but he can stack up a few points now in a couple of games. And that's what they're going to need. We talk about depth scoring all the time once you get in these later rounds. And I mean, if you're a 20 goal scorer, same thing with Burakovsky. That's just his second goal in the playoffs. It's a guy that they needed to have. So those guys need to keep doing that stuff. And I mean, Nichushkin just, keeps continuing to impress throughout these playoffs, at least for me.
Yeah, and Burakovsky, he scores the game winner. So everyone's going to be, that's awesome. And that, again, depth scoring. And both teams had it today in this game. It wasn't the Stars. Stamkos, I didn't really notice him in this game. McKinnon had his moments. He had quite a few, actually. And then Makar, is Makar. So, Jim, I want to talk about Brayden Point, though. Made his return to the lineup after not playing since Game 7 against the Toronto Maple Leafs. Played relatively a lot. 17:59. He played, had an assist. How do you feel he played in his return to the lineup?
Well, for somebody who hasn't played in it's been almost a month now. I thought he did, really well. I think the expectation was that people, he's going to come right out there and be this huge difference maker. It's not that easy. They make it look easy, but it's really not. And I think, as the series goes on, you're going to see kind of more of the Brayden Point that we saw the past 2 years when he was, Tampa's leading point scorer. I think that's the takeaway. He looked healthy. He skated healthy, which is good. There was no reoccurrence of the injury. He didn't try it and then go off. And I thought he looked really well. I'm just, thinking, okay, game by game, we're going to get that back. We talked earlier about the rust factor, whether, Colorado would be rusty. Point coming back, there was definitely some rust being worked off. And, I'm expecting some bigger things. I think as early as Saturday night, if you're looking for that X factor on Saturday night, he got his feet underneath him. Here we go. Brayden Point, look for him Saturday night to do some damage.
Yeah, I agree. I think he looked pretty good for a guy coming off that much time off. So, he didn't look like he was laboring at all, like you said. So that's good news for the Lightning for sure. Kerry, before we move on to just, some keys for next game, one thing that kind of came out of this game is that, we know the Lightning will play their fourth line a lot. They play them quite a bit. Jared Bednar didn't throw his fourth line on the ice very much. They played less than 10 minutes. All of them did. Do you think that's going to be an issue in this series? Kind of going on a 3-line team, basically, with your fourth line playing less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's hard to pull that top line off the ice, but those guys though are used to playing 22, 23 minutes. And I think that's what they were around again in this one. Yeah. That fourth line, I think it was Kubel, Newhook, Nico Sturm. And I don't know if they make a change or something. I don't know what he saw, but I just think he wanted those top two lines in particular out there as much as he possibly could, even when he switched some of them up a little bit. But I just think that that seems like very limited amount of time for the fourth line, even for Colorado, who, a lot of those guys are probably playing around maybe 10, 11 minutes a night tops. Mm-hmm. So they're going to have to going forward, just because, I don't know if they can just survive on three lines against a team like this that's as deep as Tampa Bay is. I just think that sooner or later, some of those guys are going to have to get involved. And Logan O'Connor played a lot. Guys like that are getting their minutes, but Newhook's been decent. So, I'd be surprised if he doesn't get a little more ice time. Maybe he switches something with Abe Kubel. I don't know. It's hard to say because he's been pretty liberal about switching the lines around. Burakovsky didn't even play in games 2 and 3 against Edmonton. And, he obviously had a pretty big role tonight. So he's moved those bottom two lines around a little bit. And I think just because of how tight this game was, particularly that third period, he just said, okay, you 6 guys are going to have to do it, and Kale, you're just going to play all 20 minutes. So, you're just not going to come off. So is what it kind of seemed like. So I just think with where you're at in the point of the season, everybody's a little banged up, and with how grueling these games and tight these games can get, you're just going to have to get more out of that, fourth line if you don't want everybody just to completely run out of gas.
And again, we talk about the depth. Lehkonen scored a goal again. Darren Helm had a heck of a game. 10 hits he had, so played 15:07, showing that veteran savvy that he's got. So there's a lot to like for both sides in this game. It was very close. If this is going to be the whole series, fans are going to be in for a treat because it's been really good. So to wrap this up, Jim, adjustments. Again, playoffs are all about adjustments. What do the Lightning have to do to win game 2?
Take better care of the puck. That's the first thing. Again, we talked about that earlier. Too many turnovers. You can't give them, that many chances. You just can't say, oh, Vasilevsky, stop everything, take care of all our mistakes. That's not going to happen. The adjustments that they made, I think, defensively in kind of semi-corralling the Avalanche that you saw midway through the game are some of the keys that, going forward that they're going to take on to the next game, probably plus a few other things. Knowing that, Colorado's willing to throw out some of their, first and second lines a lot more than, I think some of the other teams did in the playoffs, will be really telling about. But I think Tampa trusts not only the Cirelli line, which is, going to be charged with trying to take care of McKinnon and his line. I think they trust the fourth line, which is why you saw them out there quite a bit. And they'll trust the third line too. So they're not too much worried about, those matchups. I think he'd like to have Cirelli out there more in that line. And they did a really good job tonight, by the way. McKinnon had 1 assist. So, going forward, what they did in the last period and a half, if they carry that forward, I think on Saturday night, they should be in pretty good shape to, again, make this a very competitive hockey game at the very least, if not, steal a win.
Yeah, I think it's going to be close all series long for sure. Kerry, the Avalanche, they came away with this one, played pretty strong game, but again, every team could be better every game. What do you think the Avalanche have to do to kind of keep this momentum going and move to Tampa up 2-0?
Yeah, they have to keep them off the board when they're on the power play, and they were really good on the penalty kill tonight. And I mean, they've actually been better on the penalty kill during the playoffs than they were in the regular season. I think they were just a middle of the table type team. I think 15th or 14th in the penalty kill during the regular season, but they got to stay physical. I mean, this is a team that people just think is more finesse. Tampa's clearly more physical than they are, but for them to get 35 plus hits, I think, in this game, that's a lot for them. And if they can stay with them on that physical side, I mean, I think it does a lot for them. You know, instead of just relying, and it was a lot of people, they're not just relying on guys like Nazem Kadri and Gabriel Landeskog to go smoke people. I mean, Josh Manson was great in this game on the physical standpoint. He was laying hits left and right. Darren Helm, we talked about that. I think that was a clear thing that line was trying to accomplish. I think that's a big part if they can hang with them physically and not get, you know, sort of bowled over or pushed around, because St. Louis tried to do that against them too. But yeah, the special teams are just so big. And I mean, you look at this game, you get a couple of questionable goals against Vasilevsky. You get a 5-on-3 power play. They end up winning in overtime, you know, and like, that was it. That's all that they gave up. And you're not going to get a 5-on-3 every game, and you're certainly not going to get that. So I just think they had a ton of shots. They've got to find other ways to build more offense, just because they were a little fortunate in this one to get the 3 goals that they got. Because if you look at them each situationally, they're not, you know, like, they weren't just some electrifying goal that, you know, came off of 2 great passes and knocked the water bottle off the top of the net. So it's like, they're going to have to do a little bit more on offense. And it's weird to say that, even though they scored 4 goals in this game.
Yeah, well, still only have 2 losses in the playoffs right now. So they're doing something right. So it's going to be another fun game in game 2 for sure. So thanks, Jim. Thanks, Kerry, for coming on another post-game show. We'll be back after game 2 to break that down, and make sure to check out, of course, breakdowns of all the, you know, in the games on thehockeywriters.com, which you can hit the link that we have on the screen right now, the QR code there. Thanks for watching another post-game show, and we will see you next time.